I know I'm going to get a lot of questions and queries about some of the equipment that I showcased in the 2.4 gigahertz wireless scanning tips and techniques segment, so let me go over it real quick. Alright, so over here, this is actually a camera tripod for an X10 security system, and I simply used a couple of 90-degree angle brackets, used some 90-degree angle brackets to actually attach to the base, and with the onboard remote control right here, I can simply have it pitch and tilt. It's not a relatively expensive item. You can find inexpensive ones. The range on it is fairly well. And on the remote control itself, there are four programmable positions, and you can actually hit one of the buttons to cycle through which position you're actually going to go through. So if you actually program in, top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right, this will actually do an entire pan and sweep through an entire range of area. It's actually really nifty. I've had a lot of fun with it, and those days where I just really didn't feel like waving an antenna in the air, this was really fun to play with. Over here is another biquad. This was actually one that I built on the show itself. It's in this exact same crappy, shitty condition. However, I did one slight modification, which actually leads into another modification. Let me get the zoom to my camera real quick. Oh, I think that's as close as I'm going to be able to get it right now. This is a Bluetooth card. I have effectively modified it with an MMCX connector. Let me get a little closer in. It's not going to focus. All right. It's an MMCX connector. It wasn't too hard to do, but I do have very good soldering skills, and I just purchased the connector off of eBay with this pigtail, which will actually feed directly into the back of the biquad itself, like so. Not very complicated. But I took a 9-volt battery holder, which is right here. You really can't see it too well. It's a 9-volt battery holder, and I wrapped a little bit in heat shrink tubing so I can actually hold my Bluetooth card. Now, I have another one here that's actually in a clamp form. This way, I can actually take the little clamp and clamp the clamp to whatever, and then I can either take my Bluetooth card or even USB Wi-Fi sticks, and those will actually stay in relatively secure. That way you can actually clamp it to your laptop cover, seatbelt cover, whatever. Here's the Linksys Wi-Fi card that I've modified on the show, and it's very Martha Stewart because the colors matches very well. And that's about it. Now, you could also buy these little suction cup clamps. They have, like I said, they have a suction cup on them, and when you lock it down, it's relatively secure. And then from here, it'll slide around a bit because this is a wooden table, but let's see, do I have anything smooth around here? Or actually, there we go. Now, once we lock it down properly, there we go. It'll have a relatively nice locking clamp, but it's a bit bigger. Works really well in cars. My Fauna router, I modified it slightly, and I use that term loosely, with an exhaust fan because this son of a bitch gets extremely hot. I removed the original antenna and I put in a RS-232 TTL level serial port, very easy modification, well documented, and this is just a headphone jack. I also did a dual antenna mod. What I did was I took an old router that actually had built-in antennas, and I used a hacksaw to cut off the plastic on the outside. On the inside, these are literally soldered directly into the board, and the little rings that I cut off of the actual back of the router are just crazy glued on and yet to be installed. I actually dremeled out an area for a screen mesh for the cooling because this fan will actually suck in air through the hole and push out. I will be modifying this with a better heatsink in the future. This can natively run off of 5 volts and is currently running a beta version of the Legend firmware based off of OpenWRT that actually has web cracking, packet sniffing, and deauthentication attacks built in. Morals apply here, people. Don't abuse it. This is a stock Fauna router. Haven't done anything to it at all whatsoever. The only thing I've really done to this is I installed DDWRT onto it. I do plan on moving over to OpenWRT and possibly doing some RAM upgrades once I get the chips, but Again, this is an Atheros chipset, so you can do all of the naughty bits that you would love to do with Linux. So if you can't get a Linux Wi-Fi card, you can always attach this via network, not wireless network, because if you connect to it via network, wireless network, how are you going to use the wireless card? So you can connect to this via serial port, which is a very easy modification inside. Do I have screws in this thing? Yeah, I have screws in it, so I can't show you. It's a simple pin header. You can add an RS-232 serial port, or you can use the actual Ethernet jack on the back to plug this into your laptop or your network device, or even a serial control terminal via the serial port and control the unit. Over here is a Zipit Z1 Instant Messenger. Natively runs Linux, ARM90 CPU, 16 megs of SD RAM, 2 megs of flash ROM. You need insane, epic, godlike soldering skills to actually install the serial port as well as the SD card modification needed to run a larger distribution of Linux on this. If you do have the capabilities, which I must admit are very difficult even for an experienced person with the soldering iron, you can actually run a program such as Minicom act as a serial terminal to other embedded devices. This also has WaveMon, as well as a few other really fun applications such as WeChat. You can run IRSSI, Links with SSL capabilities. It's a very fun embedded Linux development. Embedded Linux platform that's fun for developing for. But unless you have the hardware skills, this really isn't worth it. Go get your hands on a Zipit Z2. It's more software. It's more open. You really don't need to take a soldering iron to the inside to get it to work. Here's one of the PCMCA Wi-Fi cards that I put this together in an earlier segment, but it was damaged. What happened was, this is the one I did in the actual PCMCA Wi-Fi card segment, the RF mod segment. The coax was actually ripped away from the board, so I again purchased an MMCX connector and just soldered it in. I'm not going to take this apart to show you, but I do actually have pictures of the post build of this. Either I'll cut this into the pictures into this, or I'll just post them on the forums, or always hit my Picasa page. My cell phone, Motorola V635. No real major modifications. It's just unlocked. There's really nothing special about it. The Bluetooth scanning features in this are actually built in. Most Nokia cell phones are actually relatively secure, and Motorola phones and Nokia phones, as well as some of the newer LG phones, have really good Bluetooth scanners in them. The range kind of sucks, being that it uses a ceramic inductor-based antenna, but you know, if you're sitting inside of an actual train and you got no other interference around you, really fun. This is my Linksys WRT54GL. On the front of it is a JTAG port. I will be installing two headphone jacks on the top or on the side over here for serial control. This is a Broadcom chipset, so you cannot do packet injection, so it's not as fun as the Fauna routers, and this does require more voltage to run off of, but it does have a higher power output at 250 milliwatts. With a proper gain antenna, you can push up to 5 watts of power output, if not more. It depends on what you're in the mood for. This is my Swan 2.4 gigahertz video scanner. Internally, it normally had a half-wave whip dipole, horizontally polarized, nothing more than a chunk of wire. I'll try to put some more pictures up, and I'll show you the internal structures. I do have some internal pictures of it. It cost about $250, comes with 2 batteries, earpiece, video cable, and for an extra $5 you can actually go and put the RP-SMA antenna mod, and for another $2 or $3 you can get a RP-SMA antenna. The sensitivity on this is great. The only thing I don't like is that the audio carrier is not standard 6 megahertz, it's 6.5. I haven't had the balls to actually modify this because I don't want to break it because of its expense, but it will last quite a long time. It comes with a cradle, so you can actually base charge it, as well as an external charger on the side, and you can actually stand it up and just leave it as is. It's a very good product. If you're really into video scanning, I'd highly recommend getting one. The receive sensitivity as well as the power requirements on this thing are really awesome. I really think it was worth the purchase. This is my Lorex 2.4 gigahertz video scanner. This actually has auto scan. This does not. I will be modifying a microcontroller circuit to automatically push the button over here to change the channels. The Lorex has a relatively decent receive. The modification, I really wish I had reverse polarity SMA because the antenna that was on the side, it literally looked like it was screaming for a modification for an RP SMA, but I didn't have any. The sensitivity on this is very nice. Unfortunately, it does take 9 volts to actually run. You really can't run it lower than 7.5 volts because it uses the LM7805 voltage regulator. The auto scan is a nice feature. It does save you from pushing the channel select button a million fucking times. I wish the receive was a little bit more sensitive and the scan was a little bit faster, but it works. It was about $45 for this itself, but I think it would cost about $70, which also came with a 2.4 gigahertz infrared night vision CCD black and white camera, which you should have seen in a previous segment or 3. So that's about it. Here's a close-up of the actual biquad antenna, just a piece of aluminum pipe. It's not even pipe, I think it was an old broom handle. A couple of zip ties to hold it on. I drilled a couple of holes and did a threading tap for standard tripod mount. This Bluetooth stick was quite literally modded on the show. I do believe it was episode 19. This was, it's also directly soldered into a small little piece of pipe that's welded inside. I'll try to get a inside look. I don't think I can. Oh, there's the driven element. Use the same technique as the Bluetooth modding segment. It works relatively well. I enjoy it quite a bit. Unfortunately, it's a Broadcom chipset, so you really can't do much more than scanning and connecting and other fiddly-fuck with it. You cannot do any kind of packet analysis. It does. You'd really want to go and get a CSR chipset for that, which, where'd that little sound? This is actually based off of a CSR, or a Cambridge Silicon Radio chipset. So that's literally everything in front of me. Yeah, that's it. This wraps it up. Hope you guys enjoyed.